the other one's better or not.
That's hard. Oh, it's
Yes. The only one missing is you.
I'd like to call this meeting to order. We're going to start with a moment of silence if you rise, please. I'd like tonight to remember John Newburyport, who was a noted athlete at Newburyport High School, an all-around great guy, who also played a very important role in convincing the public that rebuilding our high school some years ago was a worthy enterprise. Thank you. And our Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Be seated.
Where's Tom? I will report to you later.
I'd also like to take this moment to make an announcement that today we should also celebrate the 8th birthday of a young lady by the name of Lucy Cameron, who may be watching tonight. I want to get that out of the way before it became bedtime. I hope, Lucy, you're headed to bed soon. It's a school day tomorrow.
She loves to fall asleep to these meetings.
I'd ask the clerk to call
Wake up.
the order, please.
Councilor Cronin.
Present.
Councilor Eigenman.
Here.
Councilor Junta.
Present.
Councilor Harquist.
Present.
Councilor Herzog.
Here.
Councilor Kinsey.
Present.
Councilor Tontar.
Here.
Councilor Vogel.
Here.
Councilor Cameron.
Present.
Councilor Connell.
Present.
Councilor Bryan is absent.
And there's time to see if there are any late file items. We have two that are on your desk, a communication late file and a transfer late file.
Motion to suspend the rules to accept the late file.
Second motion.
Your second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. So we'll insert those into the agenda at the appropriate place. I'm sure the clerk will remind us where they are. Now for public comment. There are 6 comments here. Again, these are items that should be addressed to matters that are before the council tonight. The first is Adam Hamden of Longfellow Drive. Adam?
Good evening. My name is Adam Hayden from 76 Longfellow Drive, Newburyport. I believe there's a misprint in the packet. It says I'm from Amesbury, but just want to make you aware of that. Here for appointment with the Harbor Master Department as an assistant harbor master. I've been working with the department for going on 8 years this season now, since 2006, and training since 2012 to be an assistant harbor master. I'm very enthusiastic about working with Paul and the other assistant harbor masters, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam. I apologize for mispronouncing your name.
That's okay. Thank you.
Kevin Wynn.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kevin Wynn. I live at 48 Ashland Street, Newburyport, with my wife and 2 daughters. Lived in Newburyport for 20 years. I'd like to just take a quick minute here to express my support for a full-time Parks and Recreation Director, which will be coming up for a vote shortly. So as a family, we use the bike paths, we use the playgrounds in Newburyport at Casman Park and Perkins. I think it's a very valuable asset to the city to have a great Parks and Recreation department. Also, I've been involved in youth sports since my kids were old enough to play. So that's basketball, it's hockey, it's lacrosse, it's soccer, quite a few different sports that go on in the city, and many of those sports are played on the parks that we have in the city. So I've coached for 10 plus years in the city, but I also volunteer at Yankee Homecoming. I volunteer for Winter Carnival, school events. I want kids up. I want them outdoors. I'd like them away from the video games and out playing. So Parks and Recreation, again, to have a place for the kids to go. I'm an active member of Newburyport Youth Soccer. I'm on the board of directors. I am the director of fields and equipment. I'm also on the mayor's task force to help find more athletic fields in the city. So, and I'm also been a representative on the Open Space Committee as well. So I want to give you a little background, just that I do have some experience with the Parks and Recreation. The mayor has identified athletic field space and Parks and Recreation in the city as a priority. I think this is a great first step, but this is a big project. So looking at this, we have limited space in the city for field space. So we need to better manage the fields we have, and we need someone on a full-time basis who can oversee this, do the scheduling and maintenance of these fields. So the stadium is a big one. Number one, that if we can get a stadium done up at the high school with a multiple use field that can be used day and night, all time around, that's one big one. The city also lost 2 baseball, softball diamonds when the Bresnahan School was put in. So that's a very big, we need a new 90-foot baseball diamond right now. And the Fuller Fields really need some work down there to be maintained, to be brought up to snuff. So in order to achieve these goals, I think that we need a full-time Parks and Recreation director. I'm behind it, I support it. And I would ask all of you to join me in supporting that, so when it does come up for a vote, that you vote yes. And as one of the youth football coaches have said in this town, it's time that the youth have a voice, and I think by having a full-time Park and Recreation director, those kids will get that voice they need for better Parks and Recreation. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Karen Popkin.
Good evening. I'm Karen Popkin of 49 Boardman Street. I serve on the Parks Commission, and I did send an email out to the city councilors, and I very much appreciate your response to my recommendation. The Parks Commission, our chairperson, Bob Hewlett, couldn't be here tonight, but I'd like to speak on behalf of the Parks Commission that we fully support and endorse the recommendation for a full-time parks director. As you know, parks have grown over the past few years, and it is our intention to maintain quality parks that are well maintained and supported. As we know, parks are one of the greatest resources and treasures that we have in the city of Newburyport, as mentioned by Kevin. I also would like to put an emphasis on just what an incredible job Lise Reed has been doing for our city in all this time. As you may know, her position was not full-time, and yet she worked tirelessly in every single aspect, even as her job and responsibilities grew to include the rail trail. She worked all summer long getting together the new playground for the Brown School. That I just wanted to point out what a wonderful job Lise Reed does, how pleased we were on the Parks Commission, and just how everyone in the city has benefited from the work that Lise does and will continue to do. And I hope that you will support the Parks Director, and that it would be a position that would be justly compensated for the work that is amazing and just part of a great resource in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Ann Armour.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the City Council, Ann Armour, 19 Water Street and 38R Merrimack Street. I have 2 homes, work home and a play home. Here tonight, I know in your packets you have a letter from me for our annual request for use of the streets. Just offer my assistance as you go through that, and it's referred to committee. If you have any questions, feel free to, I would be be open to answering them. Thank you.
Thank you. Sandy Small.
Good evening. My name is Sandy Small. I live at 25 Oak Street, and I'd like to speak about the Parks Department Director full-time position. I think it's an excellent idea, and I was especially pleased to read the mayor's letter to the council in the packet that talked about the importance of parks. I hope we can all agree on that, and I hope we can agree that it also includes the expanded park on the central public waterfront. Thank you.
Thanks, Sandy. And one more name, Chris, and I can't read the last name. I believe it's Webba, but I'm not sure of that.
Yeah, that's my hand.
Webb, okay.
So Chris Webb, I live at 40 Bayberry Road. I am the co-owner of the Newburyport Brewing Company. And I put an application in for a sign, an A-frame sign on the corner of Graff Road and New Pasture Road, so that people will know that there is in fact a brand new brewery right down New Pasture Road. So I just wanted to say thank you, and please take a look at the application.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's the end of public comment. Let me just see. I think it's time for the mayor's comment, but perhaps if the mayor wants to pass on that item until we get to the state of the city?
Yeah.
All right. Then let's take a look at the consent agenda, please.
Which consists this evening of the approval of the minutes for January 27th meeting. There is one transfer, this full-time Parks Director transfer going to Budget and Finance that ultimately will be coupled with transfer number 2 that came in as a late file. There are 6 communications. First is Samantha Young's request for Girl Scout cookie selling at Pleasant Street on February 15, 2014, and for approval. That's second is the Greater Newburyport Chamber of Commerce letter regarding the numerous 2014 festival and events from Ann Orman to be referred to Public Safety. Third is the Soldiers Assistance Fund Flag Day, Heinz, if I can use that expression, 5K, June 14th, 2013, again, Public Safety. Fourth is the movable sign application Mr. Webb just spoke about, Newburyport Brewing Company, to license and permits. The fifth communication has been pulled at the request of the attorney, Mark Janos, who filed it, so that's to be removed from and out of the agenda completely. The last is the city clerk contract to go to Budget and Finance. Appointments first reading, Linda Smiley, 7 Atwood Street, to the Community Preservation Act Committee until April 1st, 2014. Second is Adam R. Hayden, 76 Longfellow Drive in Newburyport, Assistant Harbor Master, Special Police Officer, December 31st, 2014. The next 2 are reappointments. Stephen D. Hines, 54 Ferry Road, Harbor Commission, March 31st, 2017. Fourth, Beverly McBurney, 3 Magnolia Street, Atkinson Common Commission, until March 31st, 2017. That's the consent agenda as amended with removal of communication number 5.
What's the will of the council?
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is passed. I believe it's time for that first transfer that was late filed. Is that correct, Clerk?
We're going to take that up.
You want to take that after the state of the state? That's fine, yeah. Okay. Then break out the popcorn. It's time for the State of the City address. Mayor, would you like to join us? I might move.
No. I was turning the wrong way.
Sorry. What's that? Okay. Good evening and welcome. Thank you to the council, to my wonderful department heads and staff, residents and friends who are here for the state of the city. So what is the state of our city? Cold, too much snow.
Even though we can look at that beautiful picture of Maudsley and it's gorgeous, the Owls and the Eagle Festival was wonderful, I think we've all had just about enough of the snow and the cold. So the topics that I will cover tonight are finance, planning and development, public safety, public services, social services, and education. Finance. First of all, I would like to recognize the very strong finance team that we have that has done an amazing job addressing the finances in our city. Bill Squillis, our finance director auditor, myself, Julie Langeron, treasurer, Ethan Manning, assistant auditor. Would you stand if I call your name, please? Ethan Manning, is Julie here? No. Ethan Manning, assistant auditor, Dan Raycroft. All right. Peter Lombardi, Director of Policy Administration, Richard Jones, Jenny Lamar, Human Resources, and Lisa Valchek, DPS Business Director. Thank you. So our balanced budget, our sources of revenue, as all of you know, the primary source of revenue for our budget in the city is our real estate taxes. And as you can see, that makes up 84% of our revenue, followed by our state aid. And someone please turn off that cell phone. Thank you, Mayor.
Excuse me, Mayor. If anyone has a cell phone, could you silence it now, please? We should have started the meeting with
That's
that.
okay, it's okay, it happens, it happens. It's
Thank you.
okay. Thank
Sorry,
you.
Mayor.
It's all right.
We're going to ban you, Mary.
And then, as you can see from the rest of the pie, our net state aid is 7%, motor vehicle to excise 4%, our local receipts and fees another 4%, and personal property taxes are 1%. It's, I think, also significant to point out that over the last 2 years, for the first time in many, many years in the city, that we've been able to put together our operational budget for the last 2 fiscal years without using any of reserves or free cash, and that is pretty significant. And also, it's important to recognize that our free cash is the highest it has ever been on record at $2.4 million. So what are our expenditures? There's been a lot of discussion about education and how much we spend, but a piece of the pie for education is 54%, but that's not only covers our local public education, but that includes our assessment to Whittier and the charter school. Oops, how did that happen? I need to get back.
Reversing.
How does it reverse? Thank you. Thank you. Sorry about that. But we still have struggles, which we'll talk about a little bit further, regarding funding our operational expenses of education. Then social services. Why is this doing this? Sorry. Social services is 4%, planning and development 1%, public services 4%, public safety 15%, finance 2%, general administration, then our debt service is 7%, and employment, retiree benefits 11%. In addition, we also run 3 enterprise funds, and those are funds that are fee-based and self-supporting, water at 42%, sewer 55%, and harbor master at 3%. One of the most important things that happened recently, the first week in January, was that as we were going out to issue bans for our next round of borrowing for our school projects and for the Senior Community Center, we had an extensive interview with Standard & Poor, and we were very, very pleased that our bond rating was increased from AA to AA+. This is a significant achievement for the city because it impacts our interest rates, which has the potential to save hundreds of thousands of dollars over the course of these notes. Some of the points that Standard & Poor said was that Newburyport has a very strong economy, and it also builds off of and feeds off of the greater Boston economy, which is significant. We have a very strong budget flexibility. Our reserves are at 8% or above, which is also something that they look for, which is why we need to keep our stabilization account where it is, and also our reserves. We have a very strong budgetary performance, and I think that's also exemplified by the fact that we won and were awarded a Budget Distinction Award last year from the Government Finance Officers Association. We have very strong liquidity. We have strong management conditions, and part of that was the passage of our financial policies last year, which were also accepted by the City Council. Those formal policies and practices are very significant. We have a weak debt and also contingent liability position. One of the things that has received a tremendous amount, one of the issues over the past several months, and the governor has been trying to work on this also, is what's referred to as OPEB, or other public employee benefits. This is an area of concern, and every municipality across the Commonwealth is dealing with significant debt here. It's also a concern for the bond rating agencies, and it's also important for us to have acknowledged that, because starting in FY15, it's going to appear as a liability. In Rhode Island, it's already affected bond rating in one of their communities. So we have to really take a look at this. We were fortunate to find that in our most recent assessment that our unfunded liability whoops, sorry.
We can hear you.
We all can hear you.
Thank you. So these new fancy little things that they don't always work. Anyway, one of the things that I think was significant here was the fact that if you looked at our unfunded liability was $64.9 million, which decreased over the past 2 years to $47.9 million, and this is in large part to the great work that has been happening in terms of managing our healthcare costs. Thank you, Jenny Lamar and the PEC group. Okay, we'll just forget this fancy new presentation mouse that doesn't seem to want to work. Okay, so financial trends, as you can see here, our free cash is on the bottom, and as I mentioned, we have the highest level that we have ever had, 2.4 million, our overlay reserves, and then our stabilization fund. Increases in net state aid. As you can see, we're slowly, very slowly trying to crawl up from the massive cuts that happened earlier in the decade, and we're still not where we need to be. As you can see, we are not getting the kind of education support that I think we all would like to see, especially for Chapter 70, our funds there. This year, as we look at House 1 budget that the governor has issued a few weeks ago, we are in a position to, at level funding, lose $300,000 in our local aid, and another $260,000 is being transferred from our education assessment to the charter school. And again, I think all of us can agree that charter schools are an important educational component for children, families in our community, but the funding is a problem. We are just completing our revaluation, and as you can see from report from our assessor's office that our housing values are strengthening, and that sort of gives you overview, particularly residentially, where we are in terms of our property values. Our tax collections are very strong. In fact, we have been able to collect 98% of outstanding property taxes. And several years ago, I was astounded upon taking office how many people were delinquent in terms of paying their property taxes. In fact, had uncovered several cases where people had lived here for decades and had never paid a cent in property taxes. Had to stop. We hired a tax title firm who began working with us and aggressively pursuing tax title, and we have been able to bring in $1.8 million over the last several years in outstanding property taxes, and last year alone, that was $400,000. Average tax bills across Essex County. The average tax bill is about $6,000, and you can see where Newburyport falls in sort of the continuum there. We're just slightly above the curve. And I know that it was a little bit of a sticker shock this year when people opened up their tax bills, but that was because of the inclusion in your bill for the first time regarding the debt exclusion for the schools and the senior community center. And I know that people have been in the assessor's office having conversations, and then once they work through the bill with them, that people have clearly understood that this was an important addition to our community. Then we move into health insurance and 32B expenditures. You can see where we are with our remaining budget this year. We certainly have done a good job in terms of holding the line in terms of health insurance, and I think that was one of the most important pieces in bringing a full-time HR coordinator into the city, and working with the Public Employee Committee, which is an organization that represents all of the unions across the city, and they work together, and they have absolutely become experts in healthcare. We have a request for information out at this point, and that helps to, keep this group and the city up to date in terms of where and what other options are available to us in terms of managing our healthcare costs. We have 465 active employees who are receiving health care insurance, and you can see we're moving more people into the Medicare, into supplemental plans there too. Moving on to planning and development and project updates. Fortunately, Andy Port is not with us today. He's not feeling all that well, but our magnificent planning director, who is supported by Jordy Vining, our senior project manager. We have a new addition to the planning office this year, Kate Newell-Smith, our planner, who you will all get a chance to get to know a little bit better, because she will be chairing and coordinating our master plan, which I'll talk about in a little bit later in the presentation, and then Julia Godfredson, who is our conservation agent. So let's review some of the projects that are happening in the city. School projects obviously are really significant. This is the Bresnahan project that is well underway. We're at 70% completion. HMFH is the architect out of Cambridge, and CTA is the general contractor. It's a $38 million project with 42.7% reimbursement from the Masco Building Authority, and it will house pre-K through 3. So we will be closing the Brown School, and pre-K and K will be moving to join the Bresnahan School, and it is on budget, on time, and will be open at the start of the school year in September. The next project, which is a little more complicated because it's a phased-in project at the Knockmollen School, Miller Dyer Spears is the architect, and Gilbane is the general contractor for this project. Here he continues to be the OPM, owner's project manager. Whenever you have a city project that's over $1.5 million, you're required by state law to hire an owner's project manager who represents the city's interest. And here he has done an exceptional job with representing the city's interest here. This is a $28 million project with 45% reimbursement from the Masco Building Authority, and we're at 65% completion. And as you can see, there's some pictures there of some of the classrooms that are done, and over there is the cafeteria. One of the things the students said when they came back at the start of the school year after the phase 1, some of the classrooms were done, they were like, "It's really bright." But it is, and it's a huge improvement to what was there. So we have a lot more work to do. One of the things that I think was important piece of information we learned is that we had some infrared testing of the roof because we were concerned about the status of the roof and whether or not that was going to be problematic and if we had enough money to cover it, but only 40% of the roof will need to be replaced and it's covered in the budget, so that was all good news. The Senior Community Center, Sterling Associates and EGA. EGA's Chuck Griffin's group is a local architect here, and we are now at 95% in terms of design. It is going to be absolutely, I easily can say, the best senior center in the Northeast. It will have large function rooms and dining room, kitchen, living room, library, billiards. We've talked about having bocce courts outside. There'll be administrative exercise rooms, have plenty of parking, and we anticipate putting this out to bid in the summer. It's right after school closes. The old Bresnahan School will be torn down, and then we will begin construction hopefully in the fall and anticipate that being completed late in 2015. The Central Waterfront Bulkhead Project. This was a grant from the Seaport Advisory Council that we received $1.9 million. The pilings are about 25 to 35 years old. They're corroded and failing. So we had to reach out to the city as well as the NRA, the Waterfront Trust, and the Harbor Commission, who all helped to make up the gap for phase one. We anticipate that project's underway now and will be completed in May. The contractor, which is always nice, a local contractor, SBS New England. And then we'll have to begin looking for phase two, which is a little over $2 million to do the next part of the bulkhead project. The Clipper City Rail Trail, Phase 2. Again, the rail trail has been a tremendous addition to our community, a great asset, and so we are very excited about being able to complete the necklace. And this will start at the train station and go up Parker Street, come in through Marches Hill, under High Street, down the old Bromfield Street railroad bed, cross out at Hanover, pick up out onto Water Street, go in front of the wastewater treatment plant along the water, and continue to connect our rail trail. We're about 25% design, which is required, and then the plans are reviewed by Mass DOT, but they tend to take a awful long time in terms of reviewing the plans. We're still, we submitted them in June, so we're trying to push to get those released. We are hoping for $3.1 million in federal and state transportation. Those are called the TIP, Transportation Improvement Plans, through the Merrimack Valley Planning Organization, and we anticipate to bid the contract in FY15 next year. The transient boater facility. This is an important addition to the waterfront and for boaters in our community. The existing shack, which is quite inadequate. If you look at the far picture on your left, that's about Mr. Hogg's space. And he is trying to support thousands of boaters and visitors, as well as monitoring the river, public safety, visibility, and so all of these things can change with bringing in a new transient boater facility that will have appropriate facilities, bathroom, showers for boaters, and there's tremendous amount of economic research about what transient boaters bring, because they come to the community and they spend money and they use your restaurants and they shop, so it's important that we continue to enhance our waterfront. Olson Lewis Architects and Carey Design are the architects. They ran a meeting last week, a public meeting, which I thought was well attended, and good conversations, and there will be more regarding the development of this facility as we move forward. And all of this funding to pay for the transient boater facility will be bonded, as we did for the docks, through the enterprise account, boater fees. In Street, we have completed the reshaping of the turrets. We've done lighting down in at least part of In Street, and we redid the parking lot this past year. The next pieces on In Street that there is a desire, as we work with the Downtown Improvement Group, is to bring back the fountain and also to reset the bricks. So again, we're beginning to work with this Downtown Improvement Group, and we pay for these improvements through the paid parking revenues. The jetty project, boy, do I have really good news to share with the community today. As most of you know, we've been working on the South Side Jetty, and we're finishing phase 2 of the South Side Jetty, and we have awarded the contract to Classic Site Solutions, and that's $2.5 million, and that will complete the South Jetty. Received a phone call this afternoon from Congressman Tierney in Washington, and he has secured an additional $10 million so that we can now do the North Jetty. So thank you, Congressman Tierney, and this is really important. The Whittier Bridge project, this is a $292 million project. The Walsh McCord is a joint venture general contractor, and we had several years ago joined together Amesbury, Salisbury, and Newburyport at the Whittier Bridge Working Group to mitigate ask for mitigation for those projects and to really address the needs of the community as they emerge over the course of this project. One of the major pieces of mitigation that we were able to achieve through the Whittier Bridge Working Group was the shared use path, which will look something like the picture on the far left, and that is from the Woodrow Wilson Bridge. It's called Paraglass, and when Mass DOT had agreed to build the shared use path that will connect our rail trails, Amesbury, Salisbury, and Newburyport, over the Merrimack River. The problem was the divider was the equivalent of a chain link fence and Jersey barriers, which if you think about the height of that bridge and crossing the river, no one felt too safe about what that barrier was. So because Walsh McCord is using city property by the water plant for staging for the next 3 years, immediately my hand went out and asked for, we need mitigation here. So they agreed to build this Paraglass. The gentleman who designed this lives in Maine, and it doesn't yellow, it doesn't scratch, and graffiti comes off really easy, and it's easy to clean. So we're very excited about them building that Paraglass barrier over the course of this, at the end of the project. Also, you'll notice that there are, if you look at the middle picture and the sort of examples of the bump outs, we have just completed the final drafts of the interpretive panels that as you come across the shared use path, there'll be these areas where you can look out at the river and read about the eagles, the cleanup of the river, Deer Island, and sort of the history. And we'll also have maps of the rail trail and points of interest in all 3 communities. The other piece that recently happened, as many of you know, that we have been struggling for quite some time to try and get the wall that has really sunk and is collapsing on the other side. It's on the corner of 95 to the Laurel Briggs Ave residence, and basically Mass DOT said that they're going to just reuse the wall. But we were able to, with the help of also Senator Ives and Representative Costello, work our way up through Mass Federal Highway, and in the last couple weeks received information that yes, in fact, as long as Mass DOT has nothing to do with it, that we can negotiate directly with Walsh McCord to build the wall that we want over by the Laurel Ave Briggs neighborhood. So that was really good news, and we'll start those conversations later this week. In terms of the central waterfront, again, this is, I think, one of our greatest challenges as a community. For the past 30+ years, we've been struggling to find the right solution for the remaining 4.2 acres that is owned by the Newburyport Redevelopment Authority. And unfortunately, we had weather issues that canceled our roundtable that was scheduled for last week, and I've been working with the NRA to reschedule that, and we're looking at the 4th or 6th of March. I'll let you know as soon as we can confirm that to reschedule that meeting. And I know that the city councilors had a public meeting and solicited information from the public a couple weeks ago, and this is the process that will happen going forward as we work together with broad outreach to the community to try and figure out what it is that we want down on the central waterfront. We all can agree, I know, that we want a larger park down there. One of the things that ties directly into the central waterfront is the fact that we have to move some of the parking off of the waterfront in order to expand the park in particular. So the picture that you have there is an example of the types of intermodal facilities that can be, or parking facilities that can be integrated with streetscapes. So we're continuing to work with the Merrimack Valley Transit Authority on design. We have a couple million over the next couple years to do this, as well as working with New England Development on their plans for a hotel on the old Fitness Factory site, and the Lombardi property is where they are going to site their garage. We are working with the Senate right now. The House bill, transportation bill, has been finalized. It's now in the hands of the Senate, and we just submitted additional transportation needs for the intermodal facility. And the reason we call it an intermodal facility and not a garage is because we will not be eligible for federal funding if we call it a garage. So that's why we call it an intermodal facility. So we're hoping that we will have success in the transportation bond bill. So certainly I would encourage all of you to reach out to Senator Ives and tell her that this is really important for the community, our intermodal facility. I see this as our top transportation priority. And then transit-oriented development, our first 40R, smart growth, mixed use. Minco has been awarded the contract with, by the MBTA train station, roughly 67 affordable units. Plans aren't finalized. Things will begin to move forward on this 11.1 acres over the next couple months, and we'll be working closely with the City Council on creating our first 40R zoning. So then, as we close the Brown School and as a school and move pre-KK into the Bresnahan, we now have to deal with the disposition of our school buildings. The reason that the Kelly School is here is that originally we had hoped that it would be long-term home to our youth services, but unfortunately we discovered last spring, that this 1890-ish building, the bricks had never been repointed, and the water infiltration is significant. We've never been able to use the second floor because there isn't fire suppression, there isn't an elevator, and now we have a failed heating system. And you know, with old buildings like this, as you begin to open this up to try and figure out what to do, it would just be a can of worms in terms of, you know, the money pit. So it seems to make the most sense at this juncture is to sell this building. But one of the things that I know is that it's important in terms of the facade to our history. And so the Historic Commission, I believe it was a week ago Saturday, went out and did a tour of the building, and that they will be putting some restrictions, particularly on the facade, so that no matter what happens to that building, that it will still, you know, we'll still be able to recognize it as the Kelly School and for the history that it had in our community. And then the other piece is the Brown School. We'd like to move youth services to the Brown School because that makes sense. The first floor with a full-size gym. We have the new playground there that was rebuilt in the summer, and we at one point thought that it made sense to move administrative offices to the Brown School because we could use more space at Knockmolin. But the school is too big and needs too much work in order for the city to take on that kind of major project. So we've scheduled a meeting this Wednesday night at 7 o'clock at the Brown School for the community to come together and to have a conversation, the first conversation about, in addition to youth services moving over there, what would we like to see with the Brown School? Some apartments, some artist studios. So we'll, you know, begin to have that dialogue next week, and we also will put some money towards a adaptive reuse and feasibility study. One of the most important initiatives that we will be working on this year is the upgrade to our master plan, or revisions to our master plan. This is a 10-year document that really helps to guide the growth of our community. As I mentioned earlier, our new planner, Kate Newell-Smith, will be the master plan project coordinator and has reached out to many of you in terms of setting up you on one of these teams: land use, economic development, housing, transportation, recreation, cultural historic districts, municipal facilities. energy, sustainability, and education. We've added a couple because I think everything that we've been doing in the area of energy and sustainability, as well as the significance of education in our community, is that it needs to be part of our overall master plan. Another really important initiative in our community is a holistic review of our zoning. Our zoning has not been reviewed since 1987, and we are finalizing our contract with Community Opportunities Group, who will be awarded the contract and will be beginning working on the revision of zoning shortly with broad community input. In terms of the building department, I'd like to recognize Gary Calderwood, our building commissioner, and our assistant building inspector and ADA coordinator, Peter Benet, who is new to the department this year. Welcome. And it's been a great year for construction in the city, $189 million worth of construction projects. 66 zoning denials, opinions, or enforcement orders, over 1,500 plumbing, gas, and electrical permits, 831 building permits, and our total fees and revenues from our building permits was $576,650, which, considering some of the building projects that are going on, seems a little bit low, but we did not charge the municipal projects for building permits. Public safety. I'd like to introduce our public safety team, starting with Marshall Howard from the Police Department, Emergency Management Director, myself, Peter Lombardi, Director of Policy Administration, Chris LeClaire, our Chief of the Fire Department, Paul Hogg, Harbor Master, Bob Bracey, our Health Director. Where is he? There he is. Thank you, Bob. Cataldo Ambulance, and we began meeting fairly regular during the summer as we solicited this new team because there were new players, and then we now meet on a monthly basis, and then whenever there is impending storm, hurricanes, nor'easters, major blizzards, we bring together a full emergency management team, including the above public safety team, and then we also include Department of Public Services, the Coast Guard, Don DeGloria from the Emergency Management, Roseanne from the Council of Aging, and the Salvation Army, because they oftentimes will serve as a shelter. Under the Fire Department, in June, we hired a new chief, Chris LeClaire, which you just met. He comes with 28 years of broad-based experience, and he's really been focusing on upgrading the standard operating procedures, more trainings, professionalism, customer service, and some of their statistics, they respond to about 3,000 calls annually, and their goal is to have a 5-minute response time for 90% of those calls. We're also looking at 2 other pieces, which is evaluating the possibility of bringing EMS in-house, and we're also looking at the possibility of combining dispatch between police and fire. And so we'll be continue those investigations over this, this next year. Under the police department, they were awarded a burn grant, which was a combined grant for Newburyport, Salisbury, and Amesbury, and focused on drug trafficking. As you know, we've had a lot of conversations in our community of late, starting back in the fall, when we found the first needles in the Perkins Playground, as well as the arrest that happened on the rail trail. We then brought a whole public safety team together, including the superintendent of schools, to have a conversation about heroin use. Had a very powerful speaker, Chris Herron, who spoke to the schools and school community last Thursday night. And our next step is that we would like to bring a physician roundtable together at the hospital to sort of have conversations about what's happening with prescription drugs. I think one of the most important messages that was brought out during all of these conversations is that please look in your medicine cabinets, take your prescription drugs that you no longer need or use, and bring them to the lock box that's available at the police station. Get them out of your homes. The police responded to over 23,000 calls this past year. They're also engaged in a tremendous amount of safety drills and lockdown practices in the schools. I had the opportunity a couple weeks ago to actually accompany the police as they did their lockdown drills at the Brown School and the IC, and from reports from the marshal that the schools did very, very well in terms of these practices. It's unfortunate, but it's something that we need to do. There were a couple promotions this past year within the police department. Chris McDonald was promoted to inspector, and Charles Eaton and Matthew Simons were promoted to sergeants. And if you'll notice up in the upper left-hand corner, we've been sort of figuring out what are the types of vehicles that we want to lease to purchase, and these are we recently brought in 2 new Ford Inceptors, and so far I think that there is a good response. The Harbor Master, they have a new public safety boat, a safe boat, which is something that they've wanted for a long time. Paul Hogg has been working with members of the other public safety departments to train them on the use of the boat. Another, I think, important piece for the Harbor Master is the clam flats at Joppa, opened up for the first time in 80 years. It's limited to commercial clamming, though, but it's also an important economic piece for the community. I think Paul had reported something like it's a $5 million industry across our state. So this is it's significant, and I know that Representative Costello has worked diligently over the last many years to keep the purification plant opened out on Plum Island. Paul also spends time working closely with all the projects that are involved on the river, the bulkhead, the jetty, the Whittier Bridge, and just to give an example, he did a man in the water kind of training with the members out at the Whittier Bridge, and the following week there was a man in the water. So it's really timely and important that he stays on top of these types of trainings and working with all the contractors who are on the river. And again, obviously he's and the Harbor Commission are very supportive of moving forward on the transient boater facility. I would also like to take a moment and recognize, unfortunately Nora is on vacation, but would Deputy Steve Bradbury please stand? I would just like to recognize the amazing response that he and Officer Dugan gave to save a drowning victim in Maudsley State Park in September, and they both have been recognized in the receipt of accommodations and as well as the Michael Maloney Heroes Award, and I believe the Red Cross Hero Award also for your amazing work. So thank you. It's much appreciated. Health Department. Health Department is always a busy department in the city, running our flu clinics at this time of year. So to date already 500 flu vaccines have been administered. The Health Department runs a whole range of educational programs, did a lot on prevention and treatment with tick-borne diseases, particularly Lyme disease. Had a grant to do some education and work around shingles this year. Also, they are the lead group that coordinates and organizes our annual health fair and wellness fair, which continues to get bigger and better every year. We received an AED from Cataldo, which is out in our front hall. And so the Health Department has been offering CPR and AED trainings for staff in the event that we ever need to use that training. He's also, the Health Department is also under Bob Bracey has been coordinating a variety of wellness activities for the city employees, and we've joined a national movement called Let's Move Cities and Towns and Counties. Also another animal control is under health, and we have regionalized with West Newbury, and they gave us that vehicle. It was better than the old police cruiser that he was driving around in. Public Services, I'd like to introduce our public service team that is here tonight. Tony Finari, our director. Andrew Lafferty, our deputy director. John Eric White, engineer. He's not here tonight. Paul Colby, water superintendent. Dan Lynch, our water distribution manager. Joe Dugan, who is chief operator of our wastewater treatment facility. And Jamie Tuckalo, collection system superintendent. Thank you for being here. And I would just also like at this moment for all of you to give a warm round of applause to our highway department for what they do to keep our streets clean and safe during all the snow. Engineering has been a real asset to our city. We, at one point, didn't have an engineering department, but having John Eric White as our chief engineer, and we hired a new assistant engineer when Debbie Chen had taken another job, Nick Pepe, who started this year also, and they have just they save us thousands and thousands of dollars in engineering projects. For example, the work they did on the roundabout construction, the stormwater management is enormous responsibility that we must continue to move forward on in terms of dealing with federal regulations as they move into the third and fourth tier. John Eric White has been sort of leading us in this area, and last year I ended up at a technical conference in Boston doing a presentation about what we're doing on stormwater there. So we really are just a little bit ahead of the curve in terms of stormwater, but there's a lot of work to do in this area. Meryl Streep, as we know, was the work that our city engineers did saved us, again, thousands and thousands of dollars. Unfortunately, the weather didn't work with us in terms of completing that, but that project will begin as soon as the weather clears and will be finished this spring. They also provide technical assistance on all city projects, which again is very, very important. And we started a new traffic safety advisory committee, and they represent they sit on that committee, which is also incredibly helpful. In terms of water department, they've been out, unfortunately, replacing water main breaks and service leaks in this very, very cold weather. They do biannual hydrant flushing, except for Plum Island at this point. They will not be flushing any hydrants out there. They have replaced water main on Highland and oversaw the water main replacement valves and hydrants of the Whittier Bridge project, and also saved the city about $30,000 by doing the work themselves on installing a drain line, 2 manhole structures, and head wall around the roundabout. Peter Hartford, our OPM for the water rehab and wastewater treatment plan, gave you a very detailed presentation at the last city council meeting, so I will not take the time to go back over where we are, but the water plant is at substantial completion, $16 million project, and if you haven't had a chance to get out and take a tour of the plant, councilors, I would highly encourage you to do so, and would be happy to work with Paul Colby to arrange that so that you can see the upgrades that have happened there. They've done an incredible job, and it couldn't have happened too soon, because as you recall, those of you who have been on the council for a while, we had to allocate far too much money to try and keep that Clearwell limping alive until we could replace it, and now we have a whole new system, and it's wonderful. Under the sewer department, there's been over 46,000 linear feet of sewer main that have been replaced. 16 lift stations, wet wells have been cleaned. That's a Vector truck, which is what they use to do that. We've also, they've also installed 2 SCADA mission alarm systems into the lift stations, and that will continue to be expanded, because this way they can get information right on their smartphones about what's happening with lift stations if there's issues. Also, if you look on the far left, that's the insulated manhole covers that are Jamie Tuckalo has been doing with his team out on Plum Island to help reduce the freezing issues that have been happening out there. So far, 330 of them have been done. and also helped us by installing the sewer main and 7 manholes as part of the Bresnahan School project, as opposed to it being part of the contract there. Again, the sewer plant, a $32 million renovation, and we're close to substantial completion. And we're going to have one final large tech review of where everything is in terms of all of the detailed systems and technical issues regarding the sewer plant before we sign off on substantial completion there. Under social services, Kevin Hunt, is he here? Kevin Hunt, our Veteran Services Officer, Cynthia Dodd, our head librarian, Roseanne Robillard, our Director of Council on Aging, Andy Egmont, Director of Youth Services, I know she couldn't be here today, and Lise Reed, our Parks Administrator. Thank you for all being here. Veteran Services, we are working on consolidation involving Newburyport, Amesbury, Merrimack, and possibly Salisbury. And again, I think this is important and has been working very well and increasing supports and services to vets in the greater Newburyport area. One thing you might remember if you look in the lower left corner is we were very blessed that Richard Banks donated these bollards and that have insignias of each of the divisions of the armed services with a hand-carved bell, and those will be placed on every Veterans Day and Memorial Day, and as each of the names of veterans who have passed during that period of time, their branch of service, the bell will be rung. It's a beautiful addition to the Veterans Memorial there, so we're all very grateful to Richard Banks for that. We continue to provide a tremendous amount of services to the vets. We have spent about $200,000 in financial assistance, and 75% of that comes back to the city. But again, it's delayed in terms of that particular cash flow. The Newburyport Public Library, again, amazing asset to our community. Attendance and use remains incredibly high, and the programs just continue to grow. 93 programs for adults, 43 for teens, and 240 for children. They did, up in the upper left-hand corner, the women with the hats, they did this whole Crazy 8 math program. So they're always coming up with something new or different. In the center, this was 2 years. There'll be a 3rd year coming up in the spring. Very, very popular Books in Bloom. Beautiful archival center, that's the top left corner. Did an open house that was very, very well received this year, and just demonstrated some of the lower picture of some of the upgrades that have been done through grant programs and capital. Those were the new computer tables. The Council on Aging, one of the main responsibilities and focuses of the Council on Aging is transportation. And as you can see, over 6,000 round trips to 291 passengers. They have a very, very active Council on Aging board. They provide a range of services to our seniors in terms of health screenings, activity programs, Shine Counseling, which is the counseling that helps in terms of their health insurance. And one of, I think, a very, very important program to our community is our Senior Tax Incentive Program, where seniors who meet certain eligibility criteria come and volunteer in the city and work off $1,000 of their tax bills. We have about 136 people, roughly, who are participating in that program now. Youth Services did something very new and different this year. They took a group of students to Guatemala for a mission trip, and it was incredibly wonderful, from what I hear, a wonderful experience for the students, and they're already starting to plan their next trip. As you can see by the numbers, the registrations continue to grow. The participants are high. The students came together, and the City Council and the school committee jointly passed and supported the youth as they came forward and wanted to pass a Youth Bill of Rights. They continue to provide a full range of family and youth programs, and that was one of their Duck Derby in the lower corner. And they also host the Beacon Coalition, which has we're in our 9th year of our drug-free community grants. It's a federal program from SAMHSA. A very, very important piece for the community too. And they also create about 30 youth jobs a year. Parks. There's just so much to say about parks. We now have 20 and growing. The pictures you see here is the refinished Atkinson Common tennis courts, long, long overdue. Also last year, a very comprehensive open space and recreation plan was developed for the city. This is critical for us to apply for certain grants. That was some new equipment that was provided to Ayers Playground, and that's the upgrades to Perkins Field. And I think you heard during public comment the importance of why we need a full-time parks administrator. Parks are a tremendous asset. They're city property, and we have to take care of these. And the only way to do it is by having strong volunteer boards and also to have somebody who can oversee this. And now as we begin to take on more responsibility for additional field space, it's even more critical that we have someone in a leadership role who is coordinating all of this. Also, one of the highest priorities right now, we've reached critical proportion in terms of dealing with our field space needs. The picture with the inn in the middle is what a turf field at the high school would look like. On the left is unfortunately what it looks like now. And by putting in a turf multi-purpose field, working with all of the coaches from every organization across the city in terms of the schools, we came to consensus that that makes sense of what should be the first field that we take care of, because it rests some of the other fields and provides opportunity to actually get much more use out of the high school stadium field. And then the bottom is Fuller Field, and again, we've got some issues there, and this group that we've put together will continue to work with Restore Port Pride Uniting to try and move forward and take care of and upgrading our field space. Sustainability. Molly Ettenborough, our sustainability coordinator. Hi, Molly. There is, again, as so many of the department heads here have given me so much information about everything that there is happening within their departments, but there's only so much that you can share in this short time. But sustainability is just a department that continues to grow. And Molly, working closely with her Energy Advisory Board, has just made tremendous strides in our community. We continue to receive green community grants to make energy efficiency improvements to our municipal facilities. And we're very fortunate this past year to have been selected to be the pilot community to work with DOER and the Meister Group to set up a 20-year sustainability plan, and we've been, had several meetings on that. Molly also takes an incredibly active role with students in middle and high school, and she continues to expand our recycling initiatives. I think one of the programs that was really significant was the computers and recycling that was done with one of the disability agencies, and it gave the individuals with disabilities opportunity for employment. And also what they do is that they take all these computer pieces apart and then they are reused. So really important programs, and that's an E-Cube up in the upper corner that the students at the high school had built. And I think they went up to the Gomi Institute in Nova Scotia to present their work up there, which was very exciting also. Education, Susan Vaccaro, who is with us. Hi, Susan, our new superintendent, who's been with us about 7 months now, and has just jumped in and just presented her entry-level report to the school committee at our last meeting Monday night, and I know that that has been posted, so if you're interested in taking a look at that, I would encourage you to do so. But some of the priorities that Ms. Vaccaro has identified is obviously completing the building projects on time, on budget, but also including additional safety features, and that will be across all schools. Also strengthening STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and our partnerships with business partnerships, but also with higher education. And STEAM introduces the arts into STEM, and so that, again, that's another area that we have to continue to build. Increasing communication opportunities for parents and community members. Developing a long-term technology plan. This has been a real weakness in our school system, and we now have an opportunity with the 2 new school projects and the funding that comes with the school projects to put together a very strong technology plan, but we also have to be able to sustain it and have replacement pieces to that. Strengthening special education services and programmatic options is also a top priority. Developing a set of core ethical values, developing a budget process that increases transparency, advocating for increased school funding, and working with the school and city finance teams and dealing with the budget deficit. Those are overall the school priorities. And finally, would like to recognize Lois Honegger and Ann Ormond, our co-chairs of our cultural district, and we were fortunate to become the 19th cultural district in the state, and we are anticipating, as with the green communities, that will start grants dropping for cultural districts in hopefully the next calendar year. So what this does is it designates an area downtown and brings together all of our arts, culture, history, all under one umbrella, and have a lot of exciting activities and events that will be happening with this new designation. And finally, it's our anniversary this year. And thank you to Strand Marketing, who designed our new logo for our 250th anniversary. Sean Reardon is a co-chair. And he is desperately seeking another person to chair with him, who will be working on just filtering all the information about all the activities and putting them up on a website. We had a really nice brainstorming session a couple weeks ago. The Custom House Maritime Museum is doing monthly historic events already. The Literary Festival is including a lot of history programs. There's talk about doing a parade of lights and a tall ship weekend, designing a new city flag, doing a history float in Yankee Homecoming Parade, some essay contests, poem contests, particularly with students, and then doing a citywide clam bake or barbecue. And there's a lot more to come in terms of how we will be celebrating our anniversary this year. And finally, the priority goals for my administration is to maintain or improve our AA bond rating, to complete our capital projects on budget, on time, to determine the disposition of the Kelly Youth Center and Brown School, complete our master plan and zoning revisions, build consensus on the Central Waterfront Plan and disposition of the Newburyport Redevelopment Authority, and develop a workable capital plan to address our field space needs. Thank you. Any questions? Okay. Terrific. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, ma'am.
Bye.
Take a 1-minute break and let people catch their breath.
Great idea.
Do that.
Can I leave?
Great idea.
I have a cold.
All right, I'm leaving.
So we'll head in with transfer of communication, go through the appointments, and then another presentation.
I just saw that you called. Tell me what's going to be able to make the budget. We soldiered on without you. It was very difficult.
I'm sure. I'm looking forward to hearing the results. Steve, how are you? Nice to see you.
Nice work. Nice job there. Johnny Noda and I in the baseball.
Yes, it is coming out.
But it's gonna be quick. God help us.
What we talked about at the meeting last week? Yeah, I think so. My idea. My idea to fund it this way.
This is the lifestyle transfer number 2 of the senior gas. It's a transfer from free cash, $855.04 to general administration, essentially for postage, the same amount.
Motion to approve. Second.
Any discussion? Dr. Cameron?
Thank you, Mr. President. We'll talk a little bit more during the planning and development portion of the agenda about this, but this is really an attempt, and Councilor Cronin had mentioned this when we met last week, just to make sure that there's enough awareness about the zoning, potential for zoning changes, and the people that would be more impacted than others would get this notice, and this would just cover the cost of that, which was not originally an anticipated expenditure until now.
Very well, any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Very well. Next item is the other late file that we have tonight, and that is communications, which I think you're supposed to read, or perhaps paraphrase.
It's from Robert Ewing, Chair, Newburyport Park, to President of the
Council support of proposal for a full-time Parks Director position. I don't think the council wishes me to read it. It says, as Chair of the Parks Commission and member since its establishment in 1996, I'm extremely pleased to submit this letter on behalf of the Parks Commission, which enthusiastically supports the proposal by Mayor Donna Holliday to the City Council to create and fund a full-time Parks Director position.
Move to receive and forward to Budget and Finance,
Second.
the whole package.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So enacted. Next, we have some appointments before us.
Second reading.
This is second reading, so we're going to have to take roll call on these. I believe, on the advice of clerk, we can accept the motion to act on this collectively.
Motion to act on this collectively.
Is there a second?
Second.
Perhaps I should read them. Leslie Eckel, 36 Warren Street, to the Fruit Street Local Historic District Commission until March 1st, 2017. There are 3 reappointments. David Zink, 6 Laurel Road, Electrical Inspector, until January 31st, 2015. Anthony J. Frenari, 10 Olson Road, Peabody, Director, DPS, until February 1st, 2017. James McCarthy, 17 Russia Street, to the Planning Board until January 31st, 2019.
Motion to approve.
Second.
There is
There's a motion. Is there any discussion? Councilor Herzog.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just as a point of information, if I could direct my question to Mr. Lombardi. I'm just curious why Mr. Fernari his appointment would be for 3 years as a department head, whereas Mr. Zink as electrical inspector would only be for 1 year. I'm just curious if that's standard for the electrical inspector to be a 1-year appointment versus a longer appointment. Is that fair? Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm
Roll
sorry.
call.
Roll call.
It would have to be a roll call vote. The clerk, please call the roll.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Eigenman.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Kinsey.
Yes.
Councilor Tantar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes. And what's next? I think it's time for a budget review. We have a mid-year budget review. Mr. Chair, budget and finance. Development resource first.
I will give my shot at making this work. Rule 21 of the City Council rules mandates that the Budget and Finance Committee undertake a mid-year review of, July through December budget and see where we stand. And the Budget and Finance Committee did undertake the review. The rule doesn't stipulate the purpose of the review, it just says we should do a review. We thought it would be a good idea just to indicate what the committee looked at and why. We're assessing the fiscal year 14 budget performance at mid-year. We're looking basically to see if the budget, which is a plan, was a good plan, whether or not both the revenues and expenditures were consistent with that plan. Secondly, we are anticipating any requests for transfers, if there might be a department that is, might need more money. We're trying to identify that now. And finally, this is really the first stage of the fiscal year 15 budget process. We evaluate how the last budget process went, and that will inform how we go into the next budget process. The methodology, essentially, the rule of thumb is when you're halfway through the year, you ought to have spent half of your money. That's certainly the case in personnel, but doesn't necessarily hold. So what we did, we took, it's a little arbitrary, we took expenditure levels that were over 55%, and we took a closer look at them. And then we identified the explanation for spending levels that were greater than 55%. Uh-oh.
Go to the keyboard.
Oh, can I go back? General fund revenue, 51.8%, halfway through the year. Here is all the city's revenues through December. You'll notice that there are a number of categories that have gone up. The meals excise tax. Yikes.
Get your finger off of that thing.
Yeah, put that thing down.
Thing is possessed.
Oh. Well, that just took off on me. Interest.
Serious?
Breathe.
Hey.
Maybe I should talk about interest. Fees are up on municipal liens, tax titles, copies, recording, zoning, marriages, utility, marriage licenses. Police fines are down. I think that might be a good thing. I'd say that might not be a good thing if we had cut police staffing or cut police overtime.
They want you to speed it up.
It's going backwards.
Oh, no, backwards?
Maybe I just can't move.
What do you do with opening ceremonies?
Why did this happen to the mayor?
Can you turn the mouse off? Charlie?
Oh, the mouse.
Turn the mouse
Ooh.
off.
The mouse might be
Throw it out the
paste.
window would be a good way to go.
Yeah, you're probably right.
That helped.
It wasn't set around. Why, it should have been. Finally, a miscellaneous non-recurring, you see that, 124,000. That was, state funds for the, FEMA funds for the blizzard in the Senate election. Net state aid is running, that's amazing.
Here, turn the mouse off. Turn the mouse off.
Yeah.
Or take batteries out of it if you can't even do that.
Or stomp on it.
Throw it out the window then.
Maybe vibrations from moving?
Picking up good vibration.
Where are we? Back. We need to go back a little bit. The net state aid. Good. Assessments fall more in the second half of the year. All right, we can move through this very quickly. These are all the departments. You see I have highlighted the ones that are over 55%, so we can move through. Next. Next. All right, general fund as a total is at 51.3%, about what we would expect it to be. And then we'll go through the particular categories that are greater than 55%. General administration, you'll see the total other charges and expenses were at almost 81%. That's annual dues, Merrimack Valley Planning Commission assessment, municipal insurance paid off at the beginning of the year. You're going to see that a lot, so it's not spread out over the 12-month period. Next, please. Information technology, again, service contracts paid at the beginning of the fiscal year, so that's why it's front-loaded. Next, please. Board of Registrars, you know, the election was held in the fall. We're not going to have one in the spring. However, because of the recall election, we may be seeing a transfer here, around 5,000 or maybe a little more to cover the expense of the expense. Next, please. Conservation Commission. This line item was cut by the council last year. It's budgeted for 12 meetings. 9 were held in the first 6 months. So they've used 75% of their budget. In all probability, we'll see a request for more funds here. Veterans Department, because of the timing of when, and this happens every year, when the state reimburses, there may be a cash flow shortage, so we might have to cover that in the next few months. Park Commission, front-loaded costs for the most part in terms of total purchases of services. However, depending on the recommendations, fiscal year 14 capital improvement plan, there may be a request for transfers for the parks. Next, please. Debt exclusion, paid when it comes due. Next, please. Ordinary debt service, same thing, so that's not necessarily spread out evenly across the year. Next, got retirement board, paid at the beginning of the fiscal year. Next, please. Workers' compensation, same thing. Next, please. Insurance group, flexible spending account was front-loaded a bit. So that's, okay, yeah, thanks. Enterprise funds, again, the total harbor master certainly spends more in the summer, and that also is apparently true of the other enterprise funds as well, a little higher. Next, please. Total school department, you're going to note this, through December they were at 40.7%. However, next slide, please. You'll note that in the December school committee meeting last year, the school department indicated that there was going to be they were running a deficit. The deficit is a result of the expenditures greater than what was budgeted for special ed tuition, contracted services for special ed, legal and summer program, special ed transportation. That was one category, special ed. Then transportation, ridership was up, required more expenditures. Food services, the 25% increase lunch program was not approved, so more funds are necessary for the school lunch program. Leave of absence costs also are running higher. Two categories reduced that. One, the council last December passed a transfer of Chapter 70 funds for the schools. That's $161,000. And then from the state, choice circuit breaker programs and fund balances, the school department was able to decrease that. So we could be looking at approximately a $500,000 request on a free cash transferred here. Finally, this is the end. How'd I do? I did badly in time. Snow and ice. Currently, it's $150,000. That's December. It was 30%. Currently, it's $150,000 over budget. I don't know if you looked at the weather report, but it's going to keep snowing. So we'll see where that goes. Any questions?
Very good.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
While Mr. Fenari is here, I think we're ready for orders. We have order number 1.
The City Council of the City of Newburyport accepts the provisions of Chapter 59, Section 5, Chapter 110, Section 110, reduce the residency requirement for veterans who were not domiciled in Massachusetts 6 months before entering the service from 5 years to 1 year before filing the application. Submitted Councilor Charles Tontar.
Motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Order number 2.
Dated February 4th, that whereas the Commonwealth of Massachusetts has been engaged in a process to establish a competitive marketplace through deregulation and restructuring of the electric utility industry, and whereas citizens of Newburyport have a substantial economic and social interest at stake, and whereas the City of Newburyport hereby finds that it may be in the interest of the electric ratepayers, both residential and commercial industrial, to enter into an aggregation agreement, be it therefore resolved that pursuant to MGL 164, Section 134, City of Newburyport hereby states publicly its intent to become an aggregator of electric power on behalf of its residential and business communities, and will negotiate and enter into a contract for power supply independently. If such a contract is executed, individual consumers would retain the option not to participate and to choose any alternatives they desire or take any other action relative thereto. Submitted Councilor R.E.B. Herzog.
Motion to refer to Public Utilities and Committee of the Whole.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Councilor Christie.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just real briefly, this will be going to committee, and I also asked for Committee of the Whole for any other councilors who want to participate. This is something which I have personally been familiar with since I moved to the city 6 years ago and worked for former Mayor Moak. The state the Commonwealth allows communities to essentially create wholesale electrical programs that could compete with the utilities for better pricing. And there are selected communities across the Commonwealth that have already enacted this over the years. It would involve working with a consulting company that would essentially manage it, and a representative of this consultant will be at the Public Utilities meeting. That's a nutshell. Ethan Manning and Molly Ettenborough are here if anyone has any questions. Otherwise, a meeting is in the process of being scheduled. Thanks.
Any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We have no ordinances at this time, and now it's time for committee reports. Budget and finance, we've already had that. License and permit,
Nothing to report.
planning and development.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a quick report. As you know, we've had a couple of meetings recently. On the 28th, we had a planning and development and also posted as a committee of the whole, really a listening session on the waterfront upstairs, and I think everyone here was there. We heard from approximately 45, 50 people. Yes, we were all here. And I think that was great. I know I've gotten a lot of good feedback from people that participated in that, and I'm sure you have as well. And we look forward to the next step in the process, which is meeting with the mayor and the NRA. And as the mayor said, that would be in early March, hopefully. We did get minutes made from that meeting, and those will be made available, as well as some written testimony that was submitted by various people. The three ordinances that are in committee, we had a planning and development and committee of the whole last week on those. As you know, we just passed a small transfer to publicize the joint hearing with the planning board, and planning and development also posted as a committee of the whole because 2 of these ordinances have been referred to Planning and Development and Committee of the Whole. So at that joint hearing on February 19th, we'll review these 3 ordinances. I think Councilor Eigerman did an excellent job of explaining what these were at our meeting, which was not televised. So I don't know if Councilor Eigerman would want to give just a very brief synopsis on these. That might be helpful to the public, and then we'll see you all on the 19th.
If I may, I'll be very brief. I'm only going to speak because we had a bit of a misstep with publicity last week. I just wanted to state on the record for the minutes tonight that all 3 are zoning ordinances. We've had a zoning ordinance in Newburyport since 1940, so it's not a new animal, and it is not a local historic district, and very consciously not so. And I want to thank the beat reporter, Dyke Hendrickson, who reached out to me today, and he's going to work with me on some clarifications so he can run a story to air out the differences. And just very quickly, one difference is we do have one local historic district in Newburyport, and that's on Fruit Street. And that body only has purview over historic preservation. That's all they do. And they are in addition to whatever zoning review you have to go to. And that's not the model that I'm proposing. So whether it's the downtown overlay district or the demolition control overlay district, it would be done through our existing zoning bodies. So downtown, the planning board, which has a broad mandate to balance all kinds of land use issues, would now also take up design review, essentially, and account for our historic downtown. And you would not have to go to multiple boards. You would only go to them. Similarly, outside of downtown, the idea is only to regulate teardowns. That's it. So unlike in the Fruit Street Local Historic District, where if you alter your house or add something or demolish a piece of it, but not the whole house, the only jurisdiction that our zoning board would have would be a special permit if you want to tear down the whole shooting match. And it's a bright line rule. It's not an individual determination. Either the building is on the National Register or it isn't. The listing was done in 1984. The proposal is just to keep that listing. The final ordinance proposed is not proposed necessarily as interim, but it does go with the downtown overlay. It does 2 things. It makes it easier for the planning board to give relief so that businesses can share parking. So for example, if there's a small business, a new business, existing businesses will be grandfathered, that cannot provide, say, the 2 parking spaces that zoning requires, it recognizes that downtown it's desirable that we want the business, but we don't want them to park on site. The planning board would be empowered to waive the requirement. On the other hand, if they do not waive the requirement and a business is claiming that they rely on public assets, a public parking space or a public garage, they must pay a fee in order to mitigate the burden on the taxpayers for providing the parking for them. So it does those 2 things. And I just want to clarify that, and again, thank Dyke Hendrickson for giving me the opportunity. I hope to get some corrective stories in the paper. It is not an LHD, and very consciously so. Entirely different statutory system. Thank you.
Anything else for planning and development?
Nothing else to report, thank you.
Joint Ed.
Thank you, Mr. President. So I had the pleasure of chairing our first Joint Ed meeting last week. Our team is made of 3 school committee members, one who is previously a city councilor, another who has served on the school committee for 12 years, and a third who has been an educator for 35 years. It also has 3 counselors who have 7 children in total in our city's schools. Bresnahan, the Mullen, the Knock, and the high school. We're just missing the Brown, but next year that won't be an issue. And we're therefore very intimately aware of the good works that are happening in our schools, and we're also intimately aware of the challenges that are facing our schools. Finally, our team has a new superintendent who inherited a budget that is something she neither designed nor oversaw implementation of for much of its execution, but is now beholden to it and is working hard to find ways to make it work. Together, we'll be working as a team to bring the best that we can to our children who are educated in our schools. So I want to begin this committee update and future ones with good news. because we're all too often listening to what we need to have happen and what needs to improve, but we ignore the good. So let me start with high school. I reached out to Principal Mike Parent, and he reported about the Celtics basketball star, Chris Herron, coming, and the amazing response that the kids had to the presentation he gave. Reports of kids crying, kids walking up to him and embracing him after the fact. And now, as a result, there's a new project, Purple Team, or the Herron Project, it's also known as, going to be started at the high school, and that's going to assist individuals and families struggling with addiction. It breaks the stigma of addiction, it brings awareness to the dangers of substance abuse, and sheds light in effective treatment practices. At the Knox Middle School, Principal Beth Rossi reports that the Knox Student Council reps are running a food drive that's going to culminate this Thursday, and it is engaging the school in an effort to feed 41 families in collaboration with the Pettingill House. It's a great angle that they decided to add to it is that they're going to do recipes and buy the ingredients and have the kids put together packages where the families can actually make the food. So when they give them away, it'll be that's how it's going to be channeled. Mullen Upper Elementary School. That is having Spirit Week all week. So there's a lot of crazy hair days, crazy hat days and things. It's requiring a lot of hair gel in my kids' hair. But it's fun, and it's sponsored by the PTO. Relative to the PTO, they hosted Superintendent Vaccaro last week for the sake of discussion of the start and stop times. I'm not sure if anything has transpired in regards to communication back yet, but that's been promised, and the parents are gonna get some feedback from that. Let's see, finally, Bresnahan and Brown schools, they're working hard in reorganization and how they're gonna come together to be under one roof. In the future, there'll be meet and greets and information nights and community open houses. The not so good you already heard about, the deficit. We've got about $523,000 to account for, and the school has no free cash fund. They have no contingency plan. That is something that Superintendent Vaccaro wants to build into future budgets with a contingency fund. But to help the current deficit, right now she's repurposing dollars spent on antiquated budget items and examining personnel placement. That was long, I know. I assure you it's going to get tighter. But I wanted to really start the conversation about what's going on in the schools and make sure the city's aware of the good stuff that's going on as we address the stuff that needs to be helped as well. So thank you, sir.
Well done.
You have good hair, Joe. We also, neighborhood city services, public safety.
Several things. Motion to remove to occur item number 1 in your packet.
Second.
All those in favor of removing this item from committee, say aye.
All right.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Very quickly, this is something that has been going on for numerous years since I've been on the council. By the time the longer ride gets to Newburyport, it's very, very staggered. It just touches Story Ave and High Street and then is gone. So I'm urging approval on this. It's for a good cause.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Are there any items left on the agenda?
Motion to remove item 2. Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to approve as amended, and let me read the,
Maybe get a second on that.
okay.
Second.
Council?
Okay, the amendment will read as follows. No parking on the west side of Fair Street for a distance of 6 feet in a northerly direction from the exit of the Sullivan Building parking lot. That would be the amendment. This was in conjunction with Councilor Eigenman, who is the sponsor, and the Council of Aging, Roseanne Robillard, and it's just to get some of the vehicles and the buses in and out just in a safer manner, and they just need a little more room.
Just very briefly, originally it was both sides, and by working with Ms. Robillard, we were able to save 1 parking space on the other side. It's obviously very tight. This gets all the drivers happy, solves the problem.
May I just repeat that to make sure I got it? Is it no parking for a distance of 6 feet? on the westerly side
Correct, of
Correct.
Fair Street.
in a northerly direction?
Direction.
Okay.
On Fair Street.
Then it continues from the exit in Sullivan Building, which is located on the corner.
Yes.
Any other questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Cronin?
Motion to move item 3.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion to approve.
Sorry. Just to clear, it's an ordinance, we should do a roll call on that first reading in order published, correct? Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Argon?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Harquist?
Yes.
Councilor Herzog?
Yes.
Councilor Kinsey?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Aye.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you for correction. Is there any discussion on this item? Do we have a motion?
The motion to approve was brought out.
There was a motion to approve, and was the second?
Second.
Yes.
Yes.
For the record, Mr. Clerk, have it?
I do.
Is there any discussion?
Again, briefly, this is the second annual. It's in support of Boston Strong. They raised about, or the one fund for Boston Strong. They raised about $15,000 last year. It sets up down at Cashman Park. I was down there last year. It was a great community event, and I, again, urge approval.
Any other questions, comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Councilor Cronin, any other items?
Motion to remove item 4.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Discussion?
This is actually on the rail trail and in Cashman Park, so it's just pro forma that we're approving this.
Questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That's moved. Any other items from,
Moving right along, item number 5, motion to remove.
Second.
any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second again. Any discussion? Councilor Harper?
Thank you, councilors. If you're not familiar with Franklin Street, Franklin is extremely narrow. It gets more narrow as you go towards Water Street. This section is going to eliminate only 2 parking spots. And the reason is there is no sidewalk, there's no curbing, there's no step up. The sidewalk is flush, pretty much flush to the road. So when people park, they sometimes park in front of people's front doors, which obviously is a problem. Also, because the road is so narrow, if somebody does park there, there is a driveway and they have difficulty backing out or getting out of their driveway. So again, it's only eliminating 2 spots, and I urge your support. Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? As we live down the corner of Franklin and Milton. What we're talking about. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Point of order, roll call.
Point of order. Take a vote taken. Roll call.
And did we read it? It states, no parking westerly side only of Franklin Street from the property line between 10 Franklin Street and 6 Franklin Street and running in a northerly direction to Water Street, submitted Councilor Allison Harquist. Okay. Councilor Cronin?
Yes.
Councilor Iguin?
Yes.
Councilor Junta?
Yes.
Councilor Harquist?
Yes.
Councilor Herzog?
Yes.
Councilor Kinsey?
Yes.
Councilor Tantar?
Yes.
Councilor Vogel?
Yes.
Councilor Cameron?
Yes.
Councilor Connell?
Yes.
It's first reading, order published.
Anything else, Councilor?
Motion to remove item 6.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Second. Any discussion?
Yes, I brought this forth. I know there's been some back and forth on this particular block of Fair Street for resident parking. A previous council approved resident parking, and then it was taken off again. There was an upswell, that's the word, upswell of unhappiness about that, and so I brought it forth again. and I urge you to approve it. Thank you.
Questions or comments from the council? We're going to need a roll call on this. Clerk, want to read
I do. It's Section 13180, resident parking, add G2 Fair Street between Water Street and Liberty Street. Submitted Councilor Jared J. Agnew. You ready for a roll call?
Ready for a roll call? Clerk, call the roll, please.
Councilor Cronin.
Yes.
Councilor Agnew.
Yes.
Councilor Junta.
Yes.
Councilor Harquist.
Yes.
Councilor Herzog.
Yes.
Councilor Kinsey.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Cameron.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
First reading and published.
Very well. Rules Committee.
Nothing to report.
That's almost it. Go to the order. You want to say goodnight to Lucy?
She's asleep, and I'm sure we'd all like to go home.
Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Well done, sir.
I've got to remember those ordinances.